Bonjour, French 2 students. Here's your lesson 28, sections C and D teaching video. We're going to start with a little review. Again, one of the new verbs in lesson 28 is connaître. Connaître means to know. And you use connaître when you know people or places. And the forms of connaître are je connais, tu connais, spelled exactly the same way. Il, elle, on connaît, it sounds the same, but it ends with a T. Okay. Nous connaissons. Vous connaissez. And il and elle connaissent. And we have a circumflex here that I accidentally left out. Okay, because there's a T here, there's a circumflex on that I. And the past tense uses avoir, and it's connu is the past participle. So that was a new verb in this lesson. You've also, in this lesson, we've already talked about the direct object pronouns. Remember, direct objects answer the question what or who of the verb. And so for the subject pronoun je, the direct object, remember, is me. For tu, it's te. For il, it's le. For elle, it's la. For nous, it's nous. For vous, it's vous. And for il and elle pluriel, it's les. And both of these become L apostrophe before a vowel or a silent H. What these mean, right? This means me. And this one means you. This is him or it. And her or it. Us, you, them. And then we also previously had learned back in lesson 28 that in the imperative, or the order of this normally is kind of, we did ... our subject, our direct object pronoun, our verb, our ... But remember, in the imperative, in commands, affirmative ones, our direct object, it's our verb, and then our direct object pronoun. But in negative commands, it's the same order as normal. Also remember, in commands, me becomes moi and tu becomes toi. So those were the direct object pronouns that you had previously learned. So today it was about reviewing in part C. Okay, la place des prénoms à l'impératif. Note the position of the object pronoun when the verb is in the imperative. J'invite Frédéric. Oui, invite le. No, ne l'invite pas. Je prends la guitare. Oui, prends la. No, ne la prends pas. J'achète les sandales. Oui, achète-les. No, ne les achète pas. Okay, so again, this is talking about these commands. And again, affirmative commands, our direct object pronouns. Follow our verb. And in negative commands, okay, they come before the noun, or before the verb. So in affirmative commands, the object pronouns come after the verb and is connected to it, is joined to it by a hyphen. In negative commands, the object pronoun comes before the verb. And again, this is exactly the same as the way we learned it in lesson 27. That's nothing new, okay? So let's practice this a little bit with exercice 6, invitation. Vous préparez une liste de personnes à inviter à un boom. Vous êtes limité à 4 des personnes suivantes. Faites vos suggestions d'après les modèles. So invitations. You're preparing a list of people to invite to a party. You are limited to 4 of the following people. Make your suggestions according to the models. Caroline est sympathique. Okay. And so Caroline is nice, so we're going to say invitons-la. Notice we're using the new form of the imperative because we're saying let's. So invitons-la would be let's invite her. Jean-Louis est pénible, so Jean-Louis is a pain. So ne l'invitons pas. So you're always going to use the verb invitons. So in the affirmative, it's always going to be invitons, followed by your direct object pronoun. It'll be either la, le, or les. And in negative ones, it's always going to be ne and pas and invitons, and again, your article. Remember, in negative ones, because these are both followed by invitons, there'll be l'apostrophe. So, numéro 1, Sylvie est très sympathique. Invitons-la. 2. Cécile et Anne aiment danser. Invitons-les. 3. Jacques est stupide. Ne l'invitons pas. 4. Robert joue bien de la guitare. Invitons-le. 5. Ces filles sont intelligentes. Invitons-les. 6. Martin et Thomas sont snobs. Ne les invitons pas. 7. Nicolas n'est pas mon ami. Ne l'invitons pas. 8. Ces garçons sont pénibles. Ne les invitons pas. 9. Cette fille est gentille. Invitons-la. 10. Tes copains sont méchants. Ne les invitons pas. Exercice 7. Le pique-nique. Elodie demande à Mathieu si elle doit prendre certaines choses pour le pique-nique. So, the picnic, Elodie is asking Matthew if she needs to bring or to take certain things for the picnic. So, we have est-ce que je prends ma guitare? I'm going to ask the question each time. I'd like you to answer. So, since it's we, we'd say we prends la. This is la because ma guitare is feminine and singular. right? If we're masculine and singular, we're going to use le. And if we are plural, we're going to use les. But the we, if it's affirmative, if it's a yes, it's going to be we, prend, every time. If it's a no, okay, it's going to be non, ne, okay, kind of your object pronoun, prend pas. So, numéro 1, est-ce que je prends de la limonade? Oui, prends-la. 2. Est-ce que je prends les sandwichs? Non, ne les prends pas. 3. Est-ce que je prends la salade? Oui, prends-la. 4. Est-ce que je prends le lait? Non, ne le prends pas. 5. Est-ce que je prends le gâteau? Non, ne le prends pas. 6. Est-ce que je prends mon appareil photo? Oui, prends-le. 7. Est-ce que je prends mes lunettes de soleil? Oui, prends-les. 8. Est-ce que je prends les impairs? Non, ne les prends pas. Alright, day. Les pronoms complémentent lui, leur. In the questions below, the nouns in heavy print are indirect objects. These nouns represent people and are introduced by an a. So again, an indirect object answers the question to whom. And because they answer the question to whom, they're going to be introduced by this word, which means to. Note the forms and position of the corresponding indirect object pronouns in the answers on the right. Tu téléphones à Philippe? Oui, je lui téléphone. Tu parles à Juliette? Non, je ne lui parle pas. Tu téléphones à tes amis? Oui, je leur téléphone. Tu prêtes ton vélo à tes cousines? Non, je ne leur prête pas mon vélo. So the forms, the indirect object pronouns replace a and the noun representing the people, and they have the following forms: lui, to him or to her, and leur, to them. So we made a chart like this just a little bit ago with the direct objects. These, remember, are indirect objects, and they're answering the question to whom. And again, my indirect object pronoun is me and te. And for il and elle both, it's lui. For nous, it's nous. For vous, it's vous. And for il and elle pluriel, it's leur. Again, in commands, this becomes moi. And this becomes toi. So this is summarizing all of the indirect object pronouns you've learned, not just the ones for him and her and them. So again, remember, this means him, her, right, to him or to her, okay, or to them. This would mean to me, to you, to us, to you. So those are our indirect object pronouns. Where do we put them in sentences? Like other object pronouns, lui and leur come before the verb, except in affirmative commands. Voici Henri, par Louis, prête Louis ton vélo. In negative sentences, Louis and leur, like other object pronouns, come between ne and the verb. Voici Eric, je ne lui téléphone pas. Voici mes voisins, je ne leur parle pas. So, position again, we kind of just do our dot, dot, dot in case it's a question. It's our subject, our indirect object pronoun, our verb, our dot, dot, dot. If it's negative, our ne and our pas include the indirect object and the verb. Now, we know that this isn't the format when we are in commands, the imperative. Right? Then the order is for yes or affirmative ones is verb hyphen indirect object pronoun. And if it's a negative, it's ne indirect object pronoun verb pas. Because remember, there's no subject pronouns in commands. So again, not any different than what you've already learned. The only thing that's new here are these new indirect object pronouns Louis and leur. So vocabulary, verbs suivis d'un complément indirect. So these are verbs that are followed by an indirect object. Parler à. Je parle à mon copain. Rendre visite à. Nous rendons visite à nos voisins. Répondre à. To répondre au professeur. Téléphoner à. Jérôme téléphone à Juliette. Demander à. Je ne demande pas d'argent à mes frères. Donner à. Tu donnes ton adresse à ta copine. Montrer à. Nous montrons nos photos à nos amis. Prêter à. Je ne prête pas mon baladeur à sa sœur. Répondre is a regular RE verb, so it follows the pattern for regular RE verbs. Remember, for regular RE verbs, we take off our RE, which gives us our stem, and then we add S for je, S for tu, nothing for il and el singular, and then ONS, EZ, and ENT. Okay? And for the past participle, you take off the RE and add the U. So, je réponds à François, j'ai répondu à Catherine. So, the verbs téléphoner, répondre, and demander take indirect objects in French but not in English. Compare. Téléphoner, nous téléphonons à Paul. Nous lui téléphonons. Répondre, tu réponds à tes paroles. Tu leur réponds. Demander, je demande à Sylvie son stylo. Je lui demande son stylo. So, looking at like what these are saying, kind of going back up to the top up here. I talk to my friend. We visit our neighbors. You answer the teacher. Jerome calls Juliet. I do not ask for any money from my brothers. You give your address to your friend. We show our pictures to our friends. I do not loan my CD player to my sister. So again, if I didn't want to have à mon copain in here, I would use le. À nos voisins, or sorry, I would use Louis. So it would be je lui parle. If I didn't want to have à nos voisins in here, I'd use leur. Nous leur rendons visite. If I didn't want to have au professeur in here, I'd have Louis. Okay, so again, we only use these indirect object pronouns when we're replacing the nouns. So, again, that's sort of, these are kind of verbs that to kind of help you with, they use indirect objects. So let's take a look at exercice 10. Les copains de Lia. Lia a beaucoup de copains. Décrivez ce que chacun fait pour elle. Complétez les phrases avec Lia ou à Lia. So Leah's friends. Leah has a lot of friends. Describe what each does for her. Complete the sentences with Leah or à Leah. So this is about recognizing that these verbs here, if it's one of these verbs in the sentence, we'll have to say à Leah instead of just Leah. So, numéro 1, or look at our example first. Françoise invite. Invité isn't up there on that list in yellow, so it's just Leah. Patrick rend visite. That's up on the list, rendre visite, so it's à Leah. So every time it's either Leah or à Leah. So numéro 1. Marc téléphone à Leah. 2. Jean-Paul voit Leah samedi prochain. 3. Sophie prête son vélo à Leah. 4. Mélanie écoute Leah. 5. François donne son adresse à Leah. 6. Philippe regarde Leah pendant la classe. 7. Antoine attend Leah après la classe. 8. Nathalie parle à Leah. 9. Pauline invite Leah au concert. 10. Pierre répond à Leah. 11. Céline montre ses photos à Leah. 12. Thomas demande à Leah son numéro de téléphone. 13. Eric rend visite à Leah. So exercise, or your homework, is exercises 6 and 10, both of which we did. In exercise 6, you're going to write out these sentences. And again, you're either saying invite or to not invite these people. So again, if it's affirmative, you're going to have the EV tone and then your direct object pronoun. And then if it's negative, you'll have ne in the EV tone pas, and again in this spot you'll have a direct object pronoun. You'll write out those whole sentences. For exercise 10, I'd like you to write out the whole sentence here as well. And you're just going to put either Leah or à Leah. So number 1, you would type Marc téléphone à Leah, because téléphone, okay, is up on the list of verbs that uses an indirect object. Au revoir, à demain.